Tonight I made a spaghetti pie because I've been craving it. I also had some frozen chard to go with it, and I found a recipe for an apple crisp for one person and decided to make that for dessert. I started with the apple crisp. I peeled and cored 3 Granny Smith apples, then sliced them up. I added about 1 tablespoon of lemon juice to keep the apples from browning while I made the filling. 1 teaspoon of raw sugar, 2 teaspoons of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cornstarch, some cinnamon, and some nutmeg. I gave that a quick mix and then poured it onto the apples. I gently mixed the apples around to make sure every slice got coated with the filling. Then I put them in a 5.5-inch pie plate and moved on to make the crumble topping. I combined 1 teaspoon of raw sugar, 2 teaspoons of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of oatmeal, 1 tablespoon of flour, some cinnamon, and some salt. I gave that a quick mix and then realized I needed a larger bowl to properly add the last ingredient, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. I worked the butter in gradually until the topping had the right consistency. This is what it should look like. Then I topped the apples. I deliberately stacked the apples and the crumble topping high because I knew this would shrink while baking. And it did. It smelled really yummy. I hand-whipped some heavy cream and some sugar to go with the crisp. It took about 3 minutes. Then I put it in the fridge until later. Next, I got started on the spaghetti pie. I chopped some shallots and some garlic. I put about 2/3 of a pound of ground sirloin into a bowl and added some salt, black pepper, onion powder, and garlic powder. I mixed in all of the spices and then got started on the sauce. I sautéed the shallots and the garlic in some olive oil until the shallots were translucent, and then I added the sirloin. This sirloin is pretty lean, so there's usually no fat to drain. I folded the onions and the garlic into the meat until it was fully cooked. Then I poured in 1 14-ounce jar of Prego and added 1 bay leaf. I let it simmer for 20 minutes or so, just long enough for the flavor from the bay leaf to set in. It was time to boil the pasta. Spaghetti is the standard for this dish, but I use fideo, pre-cut spaghetti. It's usually used for soup, but it works here because the short and thin noodles are much more manageable. I drained the pasta, put the noodles back into the pot, and got started on the rest of the ingredients for the pie. I chopped some fresh oregano and added that to a bowl with some ricotta and a handful of mozzarella. Gave that a good mix and then moved it to the side. Next, I grated a little more than a cup of Parmesan, cracked in 2 eggs, and then added some melted butter. I gave that a good mix and added it to the pasta. The coated pasta is the pie crust, so I folded this in until all of the pasta was covered. Then I assembled the pie. First the crust, the ricotta mix, the sauce, and lastly some mozzarella. I let this bake, and here's how it turned out. I like raw chard, so I grabbed a handful of the frozen chard I mentioned earlier and cut it into thin pieces. Then it was time to plate. A slice of the spaghetti pie and the chopped chard. I plated half of the apple crisp with a dollop of the whipped cream. Then I garnished the main plate with some parsley and salted the chard. I made a glass of lemon water, set my table, and sat down to eat. The craving was satisfied. I grew up eating spaghetti pie. My recipe has evolved over the years, but the good feeling I get when I eat it is still the same. I know that the leftovers will taste even better. The bitter note from the chard paired with it really well since Prego sauce is on the sweeter side. The apple crisp was delicious. A lot of baked dessert recipes scaled down for one person missed the mark, but this had the right amount of sugar and spice, and the crumble was the best part. I linked the full recipe below. What foods do you sometimes get cravings for? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Until next time.